Oh god, another boss refight video. This time around, I'd like to talk a little about the dignity with which Capcom treats one of its flagship franchises. As a whole, Capcom has to rival Square Enix for the most overt sellout bullshit. Throughout the development of every series in this franchise, Capcom above all else seems to realize that it's cheaper to recycle than it is to invent. I suppose from a business standpoint it makes sense to re-release and reuse existent material to refuel profits from games you've already produced. But Capcom shits out such a ludicrous number of high-profile games that it seems a small request for them to put attention into what the fans clamor for from time to time. Sometimes we get things like this with Mega Man 9, which is essentially a swan song to people who grew up loving the series since day one. However, when you sit there for a solid 10 years watching things like 3 separate compilations get shit out in Japan, including re-releases of the bloody re-releases, a slew of hastily sewn-together knockoffs on everything from the Wander Swan to fucking cell phones, and 4 completely new series pop up in between, it sours the sincerity a little. Capcom does this with every facet of its franchise. There's almost as much horseshit with the Mega Man name attached to it as there is Sonic, which is saying a lot. We get cartoon series, cell phone minigames, countless single-title spin-offs covering everything from soccer, which spawned an excellent game, don't get me wrong, to fucking Monopoly, and if you haven't heard, don't ask. There are 24 separate, let's call them experiments, on the cell phone market alone. The original Mega Man has been remastered how many times now? The first 4 on the Game Boy before they finally decided to turn 5 into something unique. Wily Wars on the Genesis, which was broken as all hell despite some good original material. A hasty compilation for Japan that was eventually fixed to the admittedly very efforted Anniversary Collection we ended up seeing. Powered up for the PSP. A licensing for PC remakes so god-awful I will not hurt you by describing them. And plenty of shit I'm missing. We see this in most Mega Man series. X has had the Extreme games, a PlayStation remake of X3 that should have just been packaged with X4 or something, Maverick Hunter X on the PSP, and a full collection of the first 6, which was miles lazier than the AC for the originals was. Battle Network, which I happen to enjoy, is sickening for this, with 3 damn versions of the 5th game at the worst of it. Star Force, which wasn't necessary to begin with, started out this way by releasing 3 simultaneous versions of itself, each curiously pushing its head further and further up its own ass, and its 2 sequels followed the example pretty closely. While this assault of the same damn thing is going on, series like ZX, which God forbid could be considered something fresh, are postponed or ignored entirely. That's what turns this money grubbing into such bullshit. Capcom's phobia of imaginative thought starts interfering with the mainstays of its franchise, and so high-profile Mega Man games end up suffering for it. I don't even need to point out the lack of effort that's gone into individual facets of some games in their main series. Anyone who wants to lose a little faith in the world can look up voice acting clips from any Mega Man game that isn't X8 or Legends, which weren't exactly Oscar material themselves. I know bad voice acting and Capcom are like retardedly affectionate brothers, but Jesus have mercy. It cuts into gameplay itself when awesome concepts like Mega Man and Bass or Mega Man Zero are rushed out the door, and end up suffering both in level design and in their core elements. In Mega Man and Bass's case, levels and bosses were designed with obvious character bias, and in Mega Man Zero, the ranking system and the repetitive nature of many stages made it feel unfinished. These are examples of very good games with very curious shortcomings that are almost undeniably results of rushing the material, and not of failed ideas. Now granted, Mega Man and Bass could be called a spin-off without the justification for longer development, but Mega Man Zero was supposed to be the successor to the X series for Christ's sake. On that tangent, X5 was supposed to be Inafune's swan song to the X series, but Capcom shit out X6 behind his back while he was conceiving the Zero series, and X6 is the poster child for what I'm talking about. The damn thing will show up under any definition of failed potential. Horrendously thought out stage design that leads to numerous dead ends requiring highly specific things just to work through the main game, even more recycled sprites than X5, lazy animation, poorly thought out boss designs obviously unsuited for the gameplay that the series sports, the worst translation I have ever seen come out of Capcom, the list goes on and on. The biggest insult is that X6 ends up being a decent game regardless because there are so many individual examples of great ideas and clever levels, but these things get shit on in the sea of thoughtless nonsense. The very concept of a game like X6 is such an obvious cash-in that it's offensive before even being a half-made game, so if you're going to produce the thing, at least put effort into finishing your fucking product. Meanwhile, despite evidently having to rush X6, they found time to release 2 Game Boy rehashes of X1 through 3, and spawn their own late answer to the Pocket Monster craze. Interesting. X7 is a fucking farce. It's terrible to the point where it goes beyond the developers chasing a faulty concept, and straight into them simply not giving two shits. The game is so hilariously full of bugs and asinine gameplay that it feels like a bad practical joke, or baby's first 3D game maker project. You need to unlock the fucking protagonist. Axel is a screechier clone of X, the camera controls miserably and you control worse. Bosses are simply races to see if your sluggish ass can deal with the atrocious targeting system trying to follow their crack addict dances before you send your foot through your PS2. And I would love to see footage of the peyote-fueled odyssey that led to them letting a derelict eunuch screech burn into a mic for 5 minutes, and then nodding appreciatively to themselves and saying yes, gamers will be able to listen to this without bleeding out the ears. This shit wouldn't be acceptable if it were a shitty unlockable demo for some no-name bootleg compilation, but this is a fucking main entry in the series, the second in a row now to put in no effort whatsoever, except with nothing that was positive about X6. Another casualty of this is the Legends series. 2 very beloved games and 1 solid spin-off left us with an absolute fuck you of a cliffhanger, and since the fact, not a breath has been uttered about the possibility of continuation. This is more understandable than X6 and its progeny, because the Legends games have a niche fan base, and fully budgeting a Legends 3 might not draw the profit to justify making it. But if that's the case, don't tease us by releasing crappy Japanese cell phone games featuring the characters and stick them as cameos in your latest fighter, and then immediately deny any and all interest in continuing the series. It's a little hard to look at something like that as anything other than rubbing our faces in it. I'm not even sure Capcom does have its head screwed on straight in some of its business ventures, like putting a good deal of budget into a project like Maverick Hunter X, and then abandoning your plan to continue with it. Of course, they're always going to be able to suck in as much cash as they want as long as they keep machining out game after game after game. But if they can afford to work on some of the niche Mega Man projects they already have, doesn't it sort of invalidate the issue of Legends 3 being folly from a business perspective? Obviously it wouldn't win the market in one fell swoop, but I'm sure it would sell better than some of the junk they've come up with. Oh well, pleasant thoughts, I guess. I suppose in the end, the point I'm trying to make with all of my whining is that Capcom, and many game companies as a whole, have a serious contempt for the idea of creativity, and it doesn't feel entirely justified by the simple prospect of better business. These companies are market giants, they can afford any dalliance they want. Now it seems things like remakes, re-releases, and recycled ideas are an inevitable evil that crops out of any media industry that becomes a mainstay, whether it be Hollywood or television, and video gaming has obviously become a mainstay. Following this ideal for the sake of profit doesn't mutually exclude lending your developers talents towards new ideas and providing for the not-so-common consumer from time to time. I don't think it's fanboy bitching to assume that the gamers who fuel these companies deserve a bit of consideration here or there, and sometimes we do get it, but other times there's just a gross lack of effort put into what are supposed to be the selling points behind a company's success. When falling to easy assurances starts to degrade company's flagship series, it's probably time for that company to start giving at least half a damn. Creativity is not a profitless enterprise, it's just a difficult one. The sad truth of it is, producing quality as well as fresh gaming experiences is not nearly as easy as picking off your checklist of tried and true shit that's worked so well in the past. It's not nearly as easy as taking a system you've already got 90% hammered out to mask a new game, instead of daring to create one from scratch. And it's especially not nearly as easy as riding off the wings of your early successes again and again and again with remakes and re-releases, which I swear to God are the single most exhausting things in any form of corporate media today. I don't mean to come across as too much of a pessimistic douchebag with this, or someone who can't recognize that majority does not mean entirety. Just because this is a predominant philosophy in video game development is not to say that mainstream developers don't produce very refreshing and high quality material, both in their franchises and in their standalone titles. I'm just putting forth what I feel this particular franchise, and many others, have degraded into over the years, even though we do occasionally see true invention come from them. How to summarize all of this nonsense? Just make me a 2D X9 and I'll shut the fuck up. Concluding this, the final segment is all boss battles too, but they're fresh ones and there's shit to say about them, so look forward to it.